dispatchable baseload coal-fired power, and that's what's created a lot of the problems. So my job and Tim's job, when he's Premier of Queensland, is going to be to ensure that we maintain affordable and reliable power. This has been too politicised, there's been too much ideology and not enough competence. You've got to focus on the engineering and economics. You've got to keep the lights on, and people have got to be able to afford to pay the bills when they are on. Now, Tim, do you want to talk about coal in the north?
Yeah. Absolutely. Lauren, what's happened here in terms of Queensland is the network costs make up, as the PM has said, about 50% of the power bill. What we saw under Labor was 10 years of gold plating of those networks. And in doing that, they got enormous returns. And we in fact had Andrew Fraser, the Treasurer in the Bligh Labor years, writing to the federal government saying, you have to allow us to get more money back on our investment, otherwise the state's going to go broke. So they locked in those huge power prices. What we've subsequently seen, because we took about $6 billion out of that gold plating that the networks were doing, what we've subsequently seen now is the generation costs start going through the roof here in Queensland. And those generating costs have gone up by 70%, the wholesale price of power. And that's why we wrote to Rod Sims and the ACCC saying we believe that these government-owned companies under the direction of Labor are gouging families and businesses. And the real impact of that was brought home just yesterday. A small butcher shop that I visited back in Bundaberg about 2 months ago actually had to close down because of the increasing power prices. That's the real impact of Labor's gouging and their secret tax on your bill when you get it every month or every quarter.
How do you feel about the government boosting the tourism sector and going quite hard with that lately? What do you do differently as Premier?
Well, look, tourism, of course, was one of the 4 pillars. We established the Destination Q forums to get the tourism industry coming together because we could see the need for tourism. Unfortunately, what we're seeing here in Queensland is although we are seeing visitors coming here, we're not seeing them stay as long and spend as much money. And that's got to be the key to it. And compared to, I'm sad to say, New South Wales and Victoria, we're not advancing at the same rate. So I would say here that, again, the Labor government, while doing nothing, has seen a massive fail in our tourism. I'm always happy to work with my federal colleagues, always happy to work with the Prime Minister. We were up in Emerald together only 3 or 4 months ago.
That's right.
And unlike Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, who doesn't want to be seen apparently anywhere near blackout Bill Shorten, I'm certainly happy to be here with the Prime Minister and with our federal colleagues because they're delivering projects like this throughout the state.
How do you feel about the Premier?
Well, I think the only way you're going to see a state grow, you're going to see a better government here in Queensland, is if you support the LNP. I think the Premier has presided over a government that has done very little over the last 3 years, other than see a Transport Minister resign, a Police Minister resign, an Agriculture Minister resign, and an Energy Minister who, instead of dealing with the rising price of power, being red-carded under a reasonable suspicion of corrupt conduct from the CCC here in Queensland. That's not good government. Well, as the Prime Minister has said, this is a project that's been more than 100 years in the making. And from my perspective, from a Queensland perspective, I look at the jobs and the job security that it will provide. We've seen the Wagners make that massive investment on their own back into Wellcamp and the airport through there. They now need that connection to go through, and that will create enormous jobs in the Surat Basin and that enormous food bowl for Queensland, the Darling Downs. So for the people of regional Queensland and Toowoomba, this is jobs, job security, better transport, many more opportunities. So we welcome the investment that's being made by a federal coalition government that would never have been made by Bill Shorten and Anthony Albanese.